Welcome to the Power of Biz YouTube channel. My name is Tim Delaney, and over the past 11 years, I've purchased businesses and real estate to build my financial independence. My journey began with buying my first business with just 10% down, and through hard work and strategic decisions, I've been able to create the life that I want. I started this channel to share my story and experiences with the hope that I can help you do the same. Whether you're looking to break free from the 9-to-5 grind, build long-term wealth, or take control of your financial future, you're in the right place. Join me as we explore the ins and outs of buying businesses, the challenges and rewards, and the practical steps you can take to create the life you desire. Together, we'll navigate this exciting journey to financial freedom. Have you ever tried to go in somewhere just to find the doors locked? You can't find a way in? That's called a barrier to entry. In business, a barrier to entry is anything that blocks a competitor or another business from getting involved in the same industry as you are, or same activity as you are. This is something I mentioned briefly in a previous video, and I wanted to take a deeper dive into barriers to entry. So when you're putting together a business plan, or when you're thinking about a business, when you're thinking about buying a business, one key factor that you should always consider is the barriers to entry in that industry or in that niche. A barrier to entry is, again, something that blocks you from getting into that business. And these can be massive or they can be non-existent. Let's take, for example, the wine and alcohol industry, wine and liquor industry that I'm involved in New York State. This is a highly regulated industry. When somebody wants to open a new wine or liquor store, they have to apply for a license. They have to go through a big process of being vetted by the government, of showing where their money's coming from and how they're going to sustain that business. That makes it more difficult than, let's just say, a pizza shop, which is why you see a lot more pizza shops than you do wine and liquor stores, because just about anybody can go open a pizza store on any corner, any place that they want, with, they might need a health code or a health inspector to take a look at it, but that's not necessarily a massive barrier to entry. It is a barrier to entry, though. They're going to need to buy the equipment. They're going to need to make sure that they set it up in a way that the health department is going to be okay with it, the right sinks and that kind of thing. But it's not as high of a barrier to entry as a regulation that requires a more thorough application. There are these artificial barriers to entry, like I'm talking about, these regulations that prevent certain businesses or certain people from getting involved in certain activities. And then there's more natural barriers to entry, such as just like the high startup costs. So again, back to that pizzeria, you need ovens, you need sinks, you need pans, you need your initial inventory of supplies, and that might be one set of costs, versus setting up a chip manufacturer that makes the microchips and the processing chips that go into our computers and technology. That's billions of dollars of investment that needs to go into one of those facilities because of all the clean rooms and the robotics and the human resources, all that type of stuff that needs to go into that. So that is a massive barrier to entry, which is why you see right now the government, with the CHIPS Act, helping to bring some of those companies onshore by giving them tax breaks and incentives to set up the facilities in the United States. Now that they're setting up these billion-dollar facilities, they don't necessarily worry about competition quite as much, because that barrier to entry, that natural barrier to entry, is so high that not everybody and anybody can just go open up a chip manufacturer. In addition to the costs versus the regulations, there's also just R&D. So think about Google. When they first hit the market, there were other search engines out there in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yahoo, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves. Yes, I'm dating myself. Those were all search engines that we used prior to Google coming on board. Once Google really took hold of the search engine industry, it's been very difficult for other search engines to supplant them, because that R&D, that tech that Google built and it's sustained over decades now, really kind of created a big barrier to entry for any new SEO. You can also use that example on the branding side of things. That's another barrier to entry. When there's big brands out there already that dominate an industry, that's kind of a barrier to entry for anybody new getting into it. Some of the other barriers to entry that come up are distribution rights. So if you are creating a new food product that you want to get into grocery stores, sometimes there's distributors that have access and rights to certain shelf space, to certain networks of grocery stores or convenience stores that will prevent you from getting into that or prevent a competitor from getting into that. And so if you already have that and you're already in that system, you might feel pretty good and confident that it's going to be very hard for you to be supplanted, or vice versa. It might be very hard for you to get your foot in the door. Now, these are all things that you need to take into consideration, especially if you're looking at purchasing a business. There is intrinsic value to being already in a business that has high barriers to entry. So I bought an existing wine and liquor store that has high barriers to entry. It's very difficult for other stores to just pop up on the corner near me when they have to go through all this whole process of application and regulation to make sure that they're not going to oversaturate the market. So I could feel confident and pay a little bit more for that type of retail store than I might have for, let's say, a vaping shop, which I feel like are on every single corner nowadays. And the competition is so high because the barriers to entry were pretty low on that, especially when it first came out. Pizza shops are another thing. You need to really differentiate yourself and make a superb product with amazing customer service if you want to create your own barrier to entry for other competition in the neighborhood. So the more barrier to entry there is in an industry, the higher the value of an existing business in that industry is going to be. There's a direct correlation to that. Even if the business is not run or operating at its highest and best, or if it's not super profitable, if you have that in already with a higher barrier to entry, there's value to be had there. It's something to really kind of pay attention to if you're looking at businesses to buy, if you're looking at businesses to start. Just kind of pay attention to what are those barriers to entry, and if I can get over those barriers very quickly and easily, and I don't have any wildly special skill set to get over those barriers, then anybody else can start rushing into the market as well. Think about it as the same as you would a physical barrier. There's a fence in between you and where you need to go. If you are a reasonably healthy person and you can get over that fence quickly and easily, then you have to expect that any other reasonably healthy person is going to be able to do the same thing. And that's the same in business. So pay attention to those ins and outs of the barriers to entry that exist. You want to pay attention to over-emphasizing a barrier to entry. Just because that barrier is a large barrier for you doesn't mean it's going to be a huge barrier to somebody else. So when you're thinking about a barrier to entry, like let's take a new soft drink, for example. You created this unique tea blend that is awesome, and it took you it was a very big challenge and a huge barrier for you to break into the market. And now you're in the market and you've got decent distribution, and in your mind, it's easy for you to say, yeah, getting into this tea market was huge barrier to entry. Nobody else can do this, or they can do it, but it's going to take them the same amount of effort and energy that it took me. Well, along comes Pepsi or Coke or Snapple, one of these other giants in the industry, and they decide to launch a very, very similar product to you. Their barrier to entry is not going to be as high as it was for you starting from ground zero. They have the networks and the connections, the R&D, the distributors, all that stuff already. Their barrier to entry is not as big. So just always be paying attention to the fact that because a barrier to entry is there and exists for you or for other businesses that you know already, doesn't mean it's going to be there for everybody in the same way shape, or form. So very important topic to pay attention to. Always look at it when you're doing a business plan, when you're analyzing a business, and just pay attention to it. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments below. If there's something you want me to take a little bit more of a deeper dive in the barriers to entry or another topic of business valuations. If you like this, please hit the like and subscribe button. Would really appreciate you sharing with a friend. Help us grow our channel. Look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers.